kai kai, Yemaya olodo, kai kai kai, Asesu olodo, kai kai kai, Yemaya olodo, kai kai kai, Asesu olodo, Ladioke, 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 ladioke. Yemaya olodo, awalodo miho. Yemaya olodo, awalodo miho. Yemaya olodo, awalodo miho. Yemaya olodo, awalodo miho. Energy, don't you fuck with my 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 I'm disciplined. 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 Peace, 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 peace to the east, the west, the north, and the south. I am grateful that you're joining me today. Oh wait, what's okay? So I see you joining for the topic today. Hold on, I have my speaker on. As many of you may know, that a specific young man had just quote unquote. I always have to, because first of all, he allegedly, listen to me, he allegedly was murdered a couple of days ago. This young man is XXX. I don't want to debauch his name. Tession. I think that's his name, Tenacion. Am I pronouncing his name correctly? It's beautiful. Actually, the Tenacion is a beautiful name, actually. It reminds me a little bit of the Dominicano and a little bit of that Haitian, that La Hispaniola name. And as you hear me play Princess Nakia, big up to Princess Nakia from that life. She's a bruja, and she talks about this. I love that song. It's a young lady from the sect of Yoruba. Some of you don't know, bruja is a term that many in the occult, or you'll hear people from I think not only Yoruba but from Hoodoo or Santeria say bruja as a witch, as someone who does craft. Okay, so if you don't know what bruja is, that's a term that you'll hear. It's a Latina term for someone who does witchcraft. Okay, so bruja. And as I see with this young man who just passed away, as soon as I saw it and I smelled it and I viewed it and I perceived it, I smell bruja all over it. And as the backlay comes on this young man who had passed, quote unquote, who allegedly was killed. Listen to what I'm stating, because I've got some intel that I can't vest out. So I say allegedly was killed. I smell bruja all over it. And those in the occult scene, big up to the witches, the Wiccans, the Santarians, the Vunduns, the Hunduns, the Yorubans, the Jongajans, the Druids. Big up to y'all who are, why am I big up to those who are in that occult scene. And when I'm looking and seeing this young man and how he was slain, quote unquote slain, I smell bruja all over it. And we'll get a little backlay. So this young man is, just an up and coming artist. He had signed a really big contract in the late. As far as I know, I never listened to his music. I probably heard it when I've gone places. I'm a woman of a certain age. I'm all about old school hip hop, but I am progressive. So I do hear some of the music. If it falls in my frequency, I will listen to it and I'll rock with it if I feel like the vibration matches whatever intent or whatever vibration or frequency I'm matching at that time. But this young man, apparently 17, had gotten his first contract. He was on SoundCloud. He was one of the SoundCloud. He was known for his SoundCloud music. He actually made it off of SoundCloud, which I think is impressive. He had a very big following of young people who really fall into this line. He reminds me a little bit of the gentleman who passed away from, many of you who are from a certain age remember a group called Nirvana back in the days. And there was an artist who was very dark. The leader of Nirvana was a very dark artist. He dated the girl from Hole. If anybody who knows grunge back in the 90s or 90s and early 2000s, grunge music was more rock music, but it was more really low vibrational, was based in like drugs and just all the abused children of the 80s or who gave birth to these children in the late 70s and 80s gave birth to children that showed up as artists in the 90s. And it was grunge music. And I think his name was Kurt Cobain. Kurt Cobain. Thank you, deeply intuitive. This reminds me a little bit. He reminds me a little bit of a Kurt Cobain. He has a very dark music, very kind of like modernized death vibration. Bruja. For those who are walking in, can somebody kind of for those, some people don't know what bruja is. Bruja is a witch. People who do witchy type of thing, occultists. Okay, it's usually connected to the brown people. Or, Latino community says bruja. From, Santeria, you'll hear that. You'll hear it from, Yoruba, voodoo, hoodoo. You'll hear bruja. You'll hear that terminology. For those who don't know, bruja is a witch. Thank you, New Age Rebel, for explaining that. So anyway, we're talking about this young man who passed. So he comes from that kind of, like I said, he reminds me of Kurt Cobain, to be honest, because he has that same dark energy, drug-based, low vibrational, was abused. Remember, grunge back in the days, or punk, punk is before my time. So punk rockers back in the days were children of people who abuse, come from abused families, very low vibrational families where they felt like they were anti-establishment. Then later, come the 90s, you get grunge music, which is still that like into that same vibration. children that are abused, and parents who are drug addicts or alcoholics give birth to children and basically let them rear themselves via through, neglect, abuse, or, sexual abuse, what have you. Okay, so now we have another generation, which are called the millennials. Big up to the millennials. I think you're beautiful. And I think you're just showing up to remind your parents of how diabolical and how they neglected you, or how they're not really, how they were never truly invested or really prepared for parenthood. Personally, I hear so many criticisms about the millennials, but I just say you are the reflection of the parents or the lack of parenting that you came from. So I have absolutely zero to say about the millennials. You know how I am about the youth. I am a mother to all, and I see these hurt children. And this young man, xxxTenacions, he is a product of that kind of hatred. He is a product of of hate and sadness and deprived of love and attention and protection as his youth in his childhood. And now he comes and he grows up to be this young man who's actually, though he's talented, remember, he's very talented from what, if you are into that whole mumble rapping and that kind of genre. I mean, he was doing his grind on SoundCloud. He did his thing, and then he ended up getting a deal, which I commend him, but it's not really commendable because the Dark Cabal only like dark things, and they only like to sign people that they feel are MK Ultra-able. Okay, so they tend to like to get those. What's happening with the chat? Chat keeps disappearing and coming back. I don't know what that's about. It's like flashing on and off. Ever since I had this rainbow energy family, ever since I have rainbow energy, I have it all over me, and it's glitching out all my electronics. So for those who think I didn't encounter the rainbow, you could see that I encountered something, because it's messing with all my electronics. Ever since the rainbow, all my electronics is glitching, and people are seeing rainbow and hieroglyphics and all kinds of sacred geometry in some of my videos. So big up to the rainbow. So anyway, let's go back to this young man. So he made a name for himself. He actually, had an interview, which I thought was very interesting, a year ago, talking about how he glorified death. Like I said, that Kurt Cobain kind of frequency. He glorified death. He kind of welcomed it. He had it on his body. He wanted to do coffins on his stage. Like, he was about that life. So this is also a testament to what you talk and what you write, because he wrote his own songs come into existence. He manifested his own reality based on what he wrote. He was writing spells. Spelling is spells. And when you write things and you speak it into existence, then it comes manifesting as it shows up. Okay. So I personally know that, like I said, when I saw this young man's, I saw this all in the headlines, and I'm sorry to anyone who is his family members. I'm sorry for anyone who felt like his demise and his death hurt them. I'm sorry, because I really feel sorry that you've had to see this come into fruition. But it is a lesson to be learned. And also, like I said, I smell bruja all over it, meaning that this smelled like a ritual, like there was no belief. The way he died, how he died, he was buying a motorcycle, how his car was open, how the person, there's a couple people who are attached to it who look like they have demonic attachments to them. Remember, when you do rituals, you get demons, depending on who you're working with. Because, a lot of people, depending if you're doing Santeria, if you're doing Yoruba, you call upon certain deities to do your work. So they go and do a call to the frequencies of the minions who are out there to do the job, and the life. And you send them out, and they enter bodies that are already empty seaters, or people who have low field energy. That's how demons attack, or archonic energies attack to people who are already susceptible to that kind of infiltration based on their behavior, whether they're sexually deprived, whether they're, sipping on the yak daily, taking drugs. They got the drugs now that you young people have. I feel really concerned for you and your minds. I really feel concerned for you, because the things that you're taking, back in the days, people did drugs back in the days, but you guys are like taking prescription drugs. You guys are taking drugs that you can't come back from. So anyway, so I could see from the details and the story that this was something that was like an anomaly. It was a little odd how it occurred. how he died in the car, how he was shot in the car, and also how the car was left, the scene, the details of the scene. From what I gather, remember, this is all of what I perceive. I don't know this young man. Again, I'm sorry of his passing. As a mother, I could just imagine, or rather, I feel sorry for his mother and his family who have to hear this and had this occur to him. Okay, so, but just a backlay on this young man. He was no angel. He was known to be a beater and abuser of women. And he also just recently was incarcerated for a battery of, I think it was his girlfriend. And also battery, to my knowledge, quote unquote, allegedly, he also beat up, a pregnant woman. And, it's interesting that, he just got out. Well, he was out a while ago, but he had done this. And, if you do dirt, you get dirt. Remember that. That's an old adage from New York City. Let me read. I'm a Trey. Okay, so there was no blood, no wounds, no shattered glass, no damage to the vehicle. Man, come on. The pregnant girl was his girlfriend. Like I told you, allegedly he was murdered. I notice what I said. I told you I have some intel that I cannot vest out. I won't come with you and tell you stuff I don't really know because I don't know the young man personally, but I know people in that life. And I'm hearing some really conflictory stories regarding if he's here, if he's not. Also, we know that he has, he's linked to Drake, who had some issues with xxXTenacions, accusing him of stealing his content, his art, his artistry, that Drake was stealing it. And you already know, whoever's in that dark cabal, whoever signed those blood oath contracts, when you start blowing their spot and you basically a new fish in a new pond, you could perhaps be targeted, and your life could be in danger. Okay, you messing with big willies. You know what I'm saying? When you're a little fish in a big pond, you got to be mindful that even though Drake could have taken his content, I don't know, that was his accusation. He made that publicly. He has some beef with another special. A lot of these children look like garbage pail kids. This is not judgment. Listen, a lot of these millennials who put these tattoos, like I said, it reminds me of the grunge and punk age when people are anti-establishment. A lot of brown boys, a lot of brown young men are being targeted, and it's showing up. And also mothers. This is a testament. Looking at this young man and his whole antics, the way he looked, his vibration. This is a testament of the type of mother he had. And that is a judgment, because if he's showing up in the world that way, now he speaks about his mother and how he was not watched. He was passed around to babysitter to babysitter. He still loved his mother, which I think is beautiful. He said, I love her, but she did not parent me, basically. And she passed him around and left him susceptible to all kinds of abuse and infiltration and feeling a lack of love. So it makes no wonder. Listen, a lot of you mothers are not giving attention to your children. Why do you have children? We've discussed this before. You don't have children because they're not little dolls. You have to actually love and give them attention. You actually have to have income to have a child. You actually have to have a plan. You actually have to have a mate who somewhat wants to have children and will co-parent with you, at least facilitate with children and allow or bring resources to your offspring so that you can live comfortably. Many of you young ladies out here think that having children is for fun. And you see what happens. It's not fun when you don't go to sleep at night. It's not fun when you can't go, when your children get sick and you have to stay up all night and some of you have to go to work the next day. It's not fun when your friends are going out and they're single and they don't have children and you have to stay home with your child crying or just, and having to be patient and so on. Many of you just have these children for fun, or just for the novelty of the pregnancy. And once you give birth to them, you're basically done with your offspring. It's really tragic because then you see young men grow up this tragically who abuse other women because he has a subconscious hate for his own mother because of the neglect that she gave to him. And then he shows up in the world with all kinds of crazy tattoos on his face, hating his life, feeling like he's dead. No wonder he feels that way. It's tragic. And I think, it's a testament. Some of you moms and fathers need to look and take this as a lesson, whether he's dead or not. Okay, whether he's dead or not. Look at this beautiful, what was a little, I saw his baby pictures. He was as cute as a pie. He was adorable, sweet little boy. You could see he was green, and you see what he turned into. It's really quite tragic. Hold on. So let me get back to it. Yes, he was a Taurus Queen. You're absolutely correct. He was already dead emotionally already. And I say for many of you, I say you look at this scenario with this young man, and I say if you feel like you are that type of parent that could possibly breed a demon seed, and I say this, I'm not even joking. I think some of you breed demon seeds because you have no love for self, and you think that by giving birth to children, it's your rite of passage. But then you give birth to your own pain. You give birth to your own idiosyncrasies. You give birth to your own shadows. So if you're not right, you're going to give birth, you're going to manifest. It's just like you're an artist, right? You're an artist, you have a plain canvas, whatever you're feeling at the time. Like if I just feel love and I feel adored, then everything I put on that canvas will exude that frequency. I'll draw pictures of beautiful naked people making love. I'll draw pictures of like rainbows, and I'll draw pictures of beautiful babies running in a field of flowers. But let me take somebody who's been abused and neglected, and then put that same canvas in front of them. What do you think you're going to see on that canvas? Death, chokes, people choking each other, slicing people's necks off, shootings. This you basically are birthing the being that you are, whether you acknowledge it or not. But I personally think that if he did pass, this is Bruja. Someone has done a ritual, and they had brought this young man's demise brought his death into fruition. This is not small occultism. That's why I say it smells like bruja. This sounds like a spiritual setup. And this is where you have to be mindful of who you engage with, the type of things that you expose yourself to, and also once you take that blood oath, once you basically take that blood oath to be party to demons and devilish type of people, you have to know that there's always a price you pay. And sometimes you think it's somebody else's life, but you don't even realize you could be the sacrifice. Okay. I personally see in this person, as I'm watching the interviews, because I'm very curious, I'm curious as a mother, because he's so young, and every child to me deserves to live and live well. That's my answer. That's one thing that I do hold as far as part of my vibration. I come from a mother who was a facilitator in schools, so I have that. So every time I see a young man who has so much potential, he had so much to live for. He basically never, and he's actually going through an adolescent, he's basically going through what young people go through, adolescence, when he's trying to find himself. Maybe he would have came through this. Maybe he would have changed, evolved into another being another 10 years from now. This is basically a young man who shows up in the world this way, but maybe with the resources and exposed to people who have, much healthier, healthier dispositions. Maybe he would have evolved into a healthy young man later on. I don't see it, but because Chris Brown never evolved. He kind of reminds me of like that Chris Brown. Chris Brown had a little bit of a healthier background. His mother was more proactive in his life, but Chris Brown saw a lot of beatings and abuse in his household, and via how he abused Rihanna, which I thought was disgusting. And she's not one; she's one of many. Rihanna was a young girl at the time who also came from a very sketchy background too, and she got the wrath of Chris Brown. Both of them were fighting, but I'm just saying he got the better of her. But look how that character turned up. And Chris Brown has not evolved. He looks like another Garbage Pail Kid. Yeah, I don't know if you. I'm sorry. He does. He looks like these millennials look like Garbage Pail Kids. Remember, like, anybody had Cabbage Patch Kids? See, this is showing my age. Big up to all the seasoned moms here. But listen, we had Cabbage Patch Kids children when I was little. We had Cabbage Patch Kids. They were cute, chunky, healthy. But there was another version that came out after. They called Garbage Pail Kids. They were exposed to radiation. See all these mothers who like to radiate and give their children soy milk and put it in a microwave. These are the microwave children. These are the children of the crack era. People think that crack only affected crack only affected those people who did crack. No, 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 no. Why they infiltrated the hood and distributed crack in the neighborhoods is because it affects the mother's eggs. When you do drugs, mommy, you don't just affect you affect the eggs in your body. You break down the quality and the dexterity of the eggs that will perhaps become children in the future. So every time a mother does crack and she's pregnant, God forbid she has a daughter, those eggs in the daughter. So you now affected 3 generations of children. And we are now starting to see with the crack era, what the crack era brought about with all these children, Lil Wayne, Little G's, what's his name? Little G's, they have all these weird, what's another thing? They can't even pronounce it. They don't even have real names. I've gone too far. I'm serious. I'm looking at these children. I'm saying, what are they going to do if they don't have a career? They got their faces all tatted up with black Cincio goo. You remember the black goo? I told you to stop doing tattoos. There's vegan ink. Some of you go and get tattoos for everything. You're putting all kinds of sigils and rituals on your face. You got portals, open portals in these tattoos using black goo, because many of you don't even know what kind of ink they're using to give you a tattoo. You just say, oh, it's ink. What kind of ink is it? Black goo is in everything right now. And you know, black goo is sentient. I'm going all kinds of ways. I'm sorry. You got this all on his face. He got all kinds of open portals on his face, letting demons in or out. I don't know. I heard his conversation. He said he felt like death. I was like, well, because you got death all over your face. Who are his counselors? Who are the people in his life who are his facilitators? No one. And the young people listening and bouncing to this low frequency music. Listen, I listen to some of his music. You know why they like his music? Because they too feel like death. Now I'm not gonna say we. I'm gonna take responsibility. People are raising children that hate themselves, that are not happy, who have no purpose. These are the garbage pail kids. That the millennials are the garbage pail kids of the crack era, and the Hennessy era. This young man, xxXTenacions, I love, you know what's so beautiful about his name? He has such a beautiful name. Then he puts XXX in front of it, which is, you already know X can mean death, right? It's utilized sometimes. Remember in cartoons back in the days, when a character died, they put an X over his eyes. They put 2 X's over his eyes. That's death. He put a sigil, he put a ritual, a spell of death on the name that now he has as a character that he's playing. So he basically marked himself. But where was his counsel? Then he's beating up baby's mamas, and she probably got a bruja. This is what I'm saying. When I felt it, people think it was Drake. To be honest, I smelled the bruja of a female, because remember, the sisterhood is online. People don't realize that the sisterhood is now really taking over. The brotherhood is on sidebar right now. So when you do harm to the sea stars, however dastardly she is, however what do you call them thoughts? Well, however thottery she shows up, doesn't matter. Because now she's in home court advantage. So now she has home court advantage, meaning she has access to things, people, and places that will put her in a balanced situation. So when he's beating her behind and she goes to a purposeful practitioners, big up to all the practitioners that don't have any sort of morals, because when you go to do the dark arts, they don't really have to. You're telling them that you're giving them permission to do the work, to get back at them. And sometimes when you get back, you remember the ricochet, a woman who's gotten beaten, and as a pregnant woman, she has a right to defend herself, and she can actually do a ritual that will bring it back to him tenfold, but she's in right to do it. See, that's the problem. If he was clean and clear, he was a Boy Scout, he was chilling out, selling cookies on the corner, playing baseball, whatever, he wouldn't have shown up like this. But when you go around punching pregnant girls that are your girlfriend that you say you love, and then they go to a bruja, remember that angst, that energy is powerful now because you gave some credence to the actual craft. You actually, it's almost like saying, listen, I want justice for what has been done. So when you've done something wrong, when someone asks for justice and you're the person who's been wrong, you will get it. And beating a pregnant woman is just like beating a baby. So it's going to be tenfold. And how it shows up is probably getting robbed when you go in to buy a bicycle and in the middle of the road, like a dirty dog on the street. And I already told you a lot of these murders of these brown men on the street has to do with the behavior of the brown men in the communities, being disrespectful to their mothers, dishonoring their children, leaving children's homes, disrespecting, having 10 babies, mamas all over the place, not respecting the women that they're engaged with, lying, stealing. That there is a karmic, what is it called? It's a karma that shows up on a bigger scale of people when you do something dastardly. So if you have a whole bunch of brown men that are dastardly to their brown counterparts, whether it's mother, sister, daughters, children, so on, it shows up as you get enslaved because you get treated how you treat other people. So every time that, listen, this is a sisterhood online. You don't have to believe me. Just look out in the environment right now. And a lot of men, and the only men that are actually accepted in a lot of communities right now are, again, gay men. Now they've made it so that straight brown men are so feared and so non-respected that the only men that are accepted in a lot of these industry parties or of people's homes of wealth are gay males, gay brown males that dress like women. Those are the only people who are respected right now. That's how our world has come. That brown men are so seen as dastardly that now that the only way that people will even trust them around is if they look like women, if they dress and look like women. This is our environment right now. He did not beat her. Oh, wait, somebody said, but Fleur, he didn't beat her. So why him? Please find out. He did not beat her. She was paid to say that. Oh, listen, everything's relative. Remember, everything's relative. He may have not beat her, but there are others he may have beat. See, when you get away with one thing, it's like OJ. OJ may have not done the crime. Maybe he did murder his wife. Maybe he did. But what happens is that he may have gotten away with it, right? So what happens years later? Karma comes around. You get away with one murder, but then you get chumped up on some other charges, some bogus charges later on because you really did it. So you rarely ever get away with anything. So you think you get away with one crime, but it may show up as something else. Yeah, maybe he didn't do this, but maybe he did it to another girl. And he didn't get the consequences for that, but he gets blamed for this one. You understand? It's all relative. We're never victims in anything. What you do comes back to you, good or bad, indifferent. It always does. This is a 360 reality. We're living in duality still. We're getting out of that. We're living in duality. What you do comes back to you. Everything's a reflection of what you do. Okay, they might have coerced her, absolutely. They may have paid her. But remember, we don't know the type of person he was before. That's what I'm saying. He may get away with one thing. He may have gotten away with beating a chick that you don't see on social media. And then the one that he's with is saying that he did when he didn't, but he's getting charged with it. You understand? So you have to be careful defending people. How do you defend that? Yeah, I mean, new viewer here. So all I'm saying is that a bruja took him out. However, he got taken out, or he was scared, or he feared for his life. Now, personally, this is my opinion. Now, this is not vested out. This is not any intel that I'm getting. This is my opinion. I personally think that he was killed. This is my opinion. Others are saying other things in my ear that I know, that I respect. So I don't know if that's true or not, but I said it's my opinion. Why I say that he got killed and he didn't just release himself from social media and just bow out? Because he wasn't wealthy enough, number one. Anybody like Tupac or Michael Jackson or Elvis Presley, who's been in the industry for a long time, and they could put some money aside, offshore accounts, have other places in other countries where they could live obscurely with a nice little cushion, like a nice little nest egg, they could do that, and they would have more incentive to do that. But you have a young man who's just in the prime of his career. He just got on. Okay, he's just about to pop off. He just got a little bit of cash, not enough to put away to go and do a run, go and run away. And remember, you got to think about that. So he's not the type of person, as far as I could see, who has like a little nest egg where he could have dipped out real quick. Also, he's also in personality, from what I viewed, from what I observed, he also is not the type of person who's afraid of death. He welcomed death. He put it on his body. He named himself death. So this would be somebody who wouldn't avoid death itself. He's not overtly fearful of it. So that is not the type of person that would bow out based on fear. You understand? He don't look fearful of anything. He looks like the typical millennial who's like about that life, who has no feeling, who's basically just numb, and living his life. He was going to buy a bike, you know what I mean? So I don't agree with that. Now might be some replacement joint, maybe they wanted to replace him, but normally when they replace him, they would replace him with another a garbage pail kid and put him somewhere in a cellar so they could just use him to reclone him. They didn't do that. So I disagree. I think he passed away tragically. And I say I'm sorry for that, because again, I for his mother, for his family, I think it's tragic. As a woman of a certain age with children, you never want to see a child die like that. That's just absolutely horrific. There's no good things you could say about that. However, or whoever he was, he deserved a chance in life. But I think his chance in life was kind of snuffed away in his youth, when he should have been really taken care of, where he should have been nurtured a little better, so that his decisions would have showed up a little differently. Okay. And I think, I really have more issues with his facilitators, whoever was around him. I feel like they did not do a good job in protecting him, because I don't know where his how he's going to buy a bike. Where's his bodyguards? This young man has a lot of money. Where's his bodyguards? Who are the people who are watching him? When someone's fresh in the industry like that, especially has a big, beautiful following of young people, where are all his bodyguards? He did say something about being sacrificed. He spoke, like I said, it smells like bruja. It smells like somebody did a ritual and had actually, and whether, I don't know who did the ritual, it feels like a woman. It feels like this is a woman's ritual. Why is the way he died? Okay. Brujas know this. Many of you in the occult, when you see things like this, you can kind of feel the frequency of how and who did it. This sounds like someone went to, like a spiritual setup. This sounds like somebody went to a practitioner, not a low field practitioner. I'm talking about the real deal Holyfield, not the play ones you see on YouTube who are talking about they're doing witchcraft. Anybody who's truly about that life, you don't even know they're in it. Okay. True witches and Wiccans and occultists and Santerians and so on, you don't know them like that. The ones who are powerful, you don't know who they are. That's how powerful they are. They're invisible to your spectrum of judgment and your view. That's how they get away with doing things like this. Hold on. Well, you can guard yourself spiritually all you want, but the best defense to spiritual attacks like this is to live with integrity. Because you can remember, angelics surround beings who do positive things in life. You have more angelics that will protect people, take them out of harm's way, pull them out of the street if they're about to you've seen them sometimes, witnessed it on some YouTube videos where you see, angels, it seems like a being just pulled a person out of the street. When you live with integrity and you're good-hearted and you have you have a good a higher frequency in how you exist. First of all, your macabre is powerful. You have shields around you that are strong, because that energetic field will protect you. It's full of light, and it's less penetrable. And also you have angelics that will protect you and also lead you in the right direction. When you're doing dirt and harm and drinking and I don't say for anyone. No, I'm not criticizing anybody who occasionally has a drink. I'm not criticizing anybody who occasionally smokes chiefs occasionally. I'm not criticizing you. All I'm saying is that when you live that life, remember, when you do dirt, you get dirt. Who you hang around is a testament who you are. So if you're hanging around a very like a lot of diabolical beings who do a lot of hurt to women, to children, who are bad fathers, bad, you know, when I say bad, it's you understand what I mean. I'm not judging in that way because bad is a very loose word. I'm just saying when you're living around people who do a lot of dirt, then you have to understand that there's a consequence to having that vibration around you consistently. Okay. And someone said, you know, a lot of times people say, well, demons attack me. And someone said, well, people will say demons are attacking them and they're good people. What is good? Okay. Good is not sitting underneath a rock somewhere, isolating yourself because you want to be exposed to people. Good is in the mindset that you have. Good shows up in the world in the type of things you do and the way that you think. Good shows up in the world in the way that you show up, you know, in and around anyone. Hold on. Hold on. Okay. Thank you. So it, you know, really is the case. And this young man, like I said, I have a feeling that someone did a really powerful ritual on him. It could have been several people. It's definitely bruja smelling, and also because of that, there probably is going to be somebody who benefits monetarily from this, or they may take his shine and actually end up getting a better career off of his death. So if there's someone, how you know that it's a bruja, also look at who's going to benefit over the next couple weeks. If you see somebody benefiting music wise because he no longer is in that place, because people tend to try to fill, you know, like if you don't have one thing, you substitute for another. See who's being substituted for him in his place because of his demise. See who's taking that place of him losing his shine. That's also a testament who might have done this. You know, you always look at who's benefiting. Look at who's leaving the country, who's moving out of the blue. You know, if girlfriend's moving out, she got some loot to move out. Why is she leaving? You know, you always look at, I don't ever look totally at the scenario. I look at before, present, and after. I look at people's actions, and that tells you what goes on. But like I said, it smells like a bruja. I smell the I smell the incense all around this. And it's a shame because again, he didn't have protection as far as having a bodyguard, which I think I would really, his mother, if she's smart, and this is just my opinion, she should probably go after the industry because he should have had bodyguards around him. So an artist at that level who has that big a following should definitely have some protection. He should have, and especially he's a young man with that kind of money, just to make sure he's not going into neighborhoods that are a little iffy. He needs to protect it in that way. He shouldn't be going on places by himself, driving cars like that. He should also have some spiritual armor on. Why doesn't he have like an amulet on to protect him? You know, he comes from that Latino background. I know that it comes from that background. You know, he should have had some brujas of his own that are protecting you. And anybody in the industry has a list of witches and warlocks protecting them. Best believe that. That's why they wear their red bracelets on their arms. That's why they always have stuff on their necks. That, listen, he should have had some protection. Where was his protection? And that lets you know that this was also a setup because there was no one protecting him. And he probably was someone's sacrifice. Like I said, if there was a sacrifice, that means there's a benefit to it. So we're going to see who's benefiting from it. That's how you see over the next couple of weeks who shines after after his demise. And it could, and listen, family, I want to keep it real. You know, hateration is something. Most of the people who do the most harm to people are people who they know. That's why I think jealousy and envy is one of those things. People will do crafts on you just from being on YouTube and popping off. If they feel that you're too cute or they feel like you have too much shine, they want to snuff it out, they will do a ritual on you. People do it for less. So who's to say that this wasn't a setup spiritually based on some hateration, which again, we will see. over the next couple of weeks? Who's shining? Who's taking his reign? Who's leaving the country? Who's benefiting from this young man's demise? And again, I want to talk to the mothers and the fathers here. Take mindful care of your babies. Do not give birth to children. I would prefer you not give birth and have children than to see this come to fruition, to see this kind of play out. A young man neglected, abused, and then shows up in the world with such a wonderful opportunity, and it's snuffed out before he enjoy it. Some of you need to not have children. If you don't like children already, don't have them. It is a gift, but it is a responsibility, and it is a life. It is you. Your children are the evolution of you. So if you even in your avatar here and you give birth, then you're going to give birth to all those things about you that you have not dealt with. I have little ones. I'm not speaking from a place of anything. My little ones remind me of my idiosyncrasies daily. That's why I tell you I'm not perfect. But as a mother, I know what mothers should and shouldn't do. I know how mothers show up in the world, whether it's tragically or beautifully or in between. Some of you don't need to have children, really. And women of color, please love your boys. Stop giving them soy so they show up in the world looking crazy too. Because some of you give birth to children because these children show up a certain way because you mothers are giving them soy and microwave food. Stop using the microwave. Stop drinking, sipping on the yak when you're pregnant. Don't smoke marijuana when you're pregnant. Please stay away from negative people when you're pregnant. And if the father does not love you, he will not love you with the child. Walk away from him with your dignity and make sure that you can care for your child on your own if he cannot be a party to them. Make sure you know the blood type of your father. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you as a woman, listen, I am a woman of a certain age. Take care of these baby boys. They need to be loved. And these boys are showing up in a certain way because mothers, you don't love yourself. You have to love yourself before you have children because they mimic you. Your lack of self-love shows up in the children you birth. And this is a tragic example of this. He is beautiful. He had potential. Look at all the following. If he was positive, he would have still had that following. He would have, because he came from a certain bloodline that was beautiful anyway. He would have had that. But look at what he came from. Stop sleeping with these men that don't care about you. If he's not about you, leave him. Okay, love you enough to walk on your own, and then only mate with those of same bloodline, some healthy mindset. If he's drinking Hennessy, what's this new drink? This lean. What's the lean? I forgot the lean. What's that lean drink they drink? They drink some, I think it's called lean. I don't know what it's called. If he's sipping on the lean, if he can't not drink, you shouldn't be birthing with him. If he's a type of man that can't just be with you and he's got 50 other women, especially if he has children with them that he's not bothered with, that's a testament of the type of person he is. Leave him alone, sea stars. And if you give birth, love your sons enough that he needs nothing else. All the animals, the strongest animals in the wild, the leopards, the bears, the elephants, they all mother without males around. And they're the most powerful females. And they raise both males and females successfully. Listen to me, family. They raise both male and female successfully. So that means there is no excuse that a father not being around does not mean you're lacking. You have all the potential. You have everything. God has made you perfect. You can mother any child, male and female, successfully, and they will grow up to be beautiful in the environment. All the animals do it. We are not too far away from that. Actually, we're more progressive. Okay, so stop saying you're a single mother. That's another thing. Don't let the environment perpetuate that to you either. There's no such thing as single mothers. There's only mothers. Listen to me. There's only mothers. In the wild, it is not required to have a male. It is great if he brings resources and he allows peace of mind. But if he does not do that, then you are built to raise a healthy child. Okay, stop using that MK Ultra term that the previous patriarchy that does not look like you will say to you. Okay? Children come from healthy mothers. A healthy womb is all that matters. A mother that's healthy, who's self-sustaining and has a support and wealth of family, can raise healthy children. Okay, so this is what I'm saying. Start raising these little boys with love. Start letting them see only men in your life that love and adore you. Boys will choose women when their mothers are living and looking healthy and happy. You know, a lot of these young brown men don't choose women that look like them because they don't like how their mothers were acting or the sadness and pain in their mother. So they're not going to pick a brown woman if they saw their brown mother sad and depressed or abusive all the time. They will pick a woman that looks opposite of everything that they saw that's pain. And she will not look like you, mommy. If you keep displaying your pain to your little boys, he's not going to want a brown woman. He's not going to want a brown woman that looks like you because you're a reminder of his pain. Brown men will choose healthy brown women if they see healthy brown women in their household. Okay? All these brown males that are choosing otherwise, it is because they're seeing sick women displaying sick behavior and not showing love in their household. Okay? Seen it every time. I'm a woman that's seasoned. My mother was a facilitator and special ed. Seen it every time. The reason why you're seeing males showing up as dressing as females is because they're being attacked. And they feel safer as being gay males dressed as a woman than they feel as a virile brown male walking around the neighborhood that they can be targeted anytime to be murdered. Okay? This is happening all the time. You know, sometimes we got to keep it real. The conversation, sometimes everybody wants to keep it lighthearted and so on. Mothers speak to mothers, fathers speak to fathers. Fathers, when you don't show up for your son, you can't really judge how a mother takes care of your children when you're not around, when you don't even feel party to that family. Okay? If you want to stick and move, just stick and move. But don't be critical of where you stuck and how that mother shows up in the world. Because this young man had so much potential, and you see it even in his darkest moment. Look how beautiful he showed up. Look how many followed him. Look how many people followed him, and he was tragic in his behavior. Could you imagine if he was in Goddess? He is Killmonger. He is the typical Killmonger. Let's keep that real. You know what? I got to give credence to I got to give credit where credit's due, because sometimes I'll say things, and I listen to Red Pillar. Red and Blue Pill. Sometimes I listen to them. I don't necessarily agree with certain things about them, but Red Pillar said something likened to this young man being like a Killmonger, from Black Panther. I agree with him. This is a Killmonger. This is what happens when you leave little boys in the hood with no love, no protection, and then they show up as these savages, and then you get upset when they die savagely. Come on now, moms, get it together. Some of us, brown people, take responsibility. We can't blame the environment for everything. We personally are Listen, I'm not going to blame you for how I parent my children. I'm not going to blame the facilitators at their school of what they teach my children if I'm not teaching them things at home. Okay, so stop blaming everybody else. Take responsibility. Personal. The environment will show up to support you. Remember, we're all about manifestation. So when you show up and you love self, then the environment will purposefully and produce and manifest that which you display on the inside, coming on the outside. Okay? So we have to do better. Mothers, do you show love in your house to your little beautiful brown boys? Let them see you smile when you come from work, even if you're tired. Give him a hug and a kiss and tell him you love him. Because if you don't tell him you love him, he will look for every woman, 20 million of them, to try to make him with his penis, with his magic wand. He will be sticking his magic wand in every female to try to feel that love that mama did not give him. He will become a philanderer. He will become an abuser of women because you did that to him. When you come home from work, brown woman, love your babies. I'm not talking to just brown women, but I have to speak to some women who are likened to my visual, because this is showing up too commonly with the little beautiful brown boys that are coming out sick. You have to take responsibility. I'm tired of mothers saying, oh, it's not my responsibility. I didn't make him that way. No, but you did not make him that way. Show him love. Give him a hug. Tell him he's special. Tell him he's beautiful. Tell him he's wonderful. I don't care if he has ADHD, which is a pseudo term made up for children that don't want to sit in a classroom for 8 hours like biobots. Okay? Tell him you love him. Tell him he's special. Tell him he's beautiful. Let him see you dress up. Take him out to the movies on a date night with your son. Not perverted, but date night. Let him see his mother happy. Show him that he was wanted at birth. Don't talk about his father in front of him, because he will always resent you for that. If his father is a piece of shit, excuse my language, I apologize. If his father is not someone you can speak well of, then don't say anything at all, because remember, he's part of that. And every time you speak negative about his father, he internalizes that. And then he'll feel about that about himself. And then he'll resent you for reminding him of what he's partially a piece of crap like. Okay, so stop talking about daddies. Live your life, take care of these babies, make these brown boys healthier so we don't see them having to dress in dresses just to be accepted in the world. We don't have to see them being slain in the street because their behavior is so reprehensible. The environment is abusing them and giving karma back for their own nasty behavior. And stop having other men in your household who don't respect and love you and dishonoring you in front of these little boys. Be alone. Do you see any men in this household? No, you don't. I adore men. I actually have admiration for many males. I'm attracted to many different types of males. But do you see them do you see them in my feed? Do you see them rocking around? No. And the only male that you would see is probably the father of my offspring. And that would be okay with me. You know why? Because if it's not the father of your offspring, and some of the fathers of the offspring shouldn't even be around, they should be checked. But I'm just saying, if it's not, there should be no other males around your offspring. If you think I'm talking smack, go look at National Geographic and see what male lions do to the offspring of lionesses' offspring that are not theirs. Go look at that on National Geographic. Look how male lions will treat other male bears, male pumas will treat the offspring of other males' children. They will eat them up. They will kill them if they get a chance. Not all men are like that, but it is in their DNA to do so. They only want to perpetuate their own offspring, and not even that. If some of the men are so sick because they're from mothers who drink Hennessy, they're from mothers who don't love themselves. So of course they're not even loving their own offspring because they never had love themselves. They can't give what they never had or can't recognize. Come on now. Let's get it together. Let's start getting together. Some of you mothers right now, get your children together. If you know some other mothers who need some time off, give each other respite. Stop asking and begging for crumbs. We are made to mother and parent beautiful, healthy children. Our ancestors did so. Stop using excuses and raise healthier little boys so that my little girls can have some healthy choices of brown boys. Okay? So start doing it. Stop talking about it. Stop. I do. I know. I'm just saying, stop talking about it and be about it. Nobody wants to, everybody refuses to take some ownership. I'm taking ownership that I have to be the first role model in my household to my offspring. I have to, you know how many times I was tired? I nursed my children for years after what you Americans think is acceptable. I did it. I didn't care because I knew the benefits of my babies. So I stayed up at night. I look crazy. My hair is still crazy from staying up at night, staying up with those babies because I love them. And you know why I love them? Because I love myself. I gained that love for self. So that's my evolution. My babies are my evolutionary process. My evolution, how they show up, shows my evolutionary process. It shows what I am and what I'm going to be. And when I come back in incarnation in another life, I've created ancestors, a blood lineage that I would be proud to come back into. Start treating boys better. If you don't want babies, don't have them, because I'm tired of seeing another one bite the dust. Another young man, a beautiful young man, xxxTenacions, has now lost, allegedly, lost his life. For what? And it would not be out of his story, because this is kind of like the average story of a brown man who was tragically abused and neglected as a child, who shows up with somewhat potential and then gets snuffed out before he can even enjoy the fruits of his labor. Come on now. If I see another brown boy on the street with no love, I have a problem with you mothers, because you always talk about the men leaving the house. You don't require them to be a good mother. Stop, get off your high horse. Stop self-loathing. Stop feeling sorry for yourself and start taking care of yourself spiritually, mentally, and physically. And let's raise some healthy babies so that brujas don't have to do a backlash of the sisterhood because you didn't do your job. Don't get mad at the bruja for sending back some dirt of this young man who probably was beating up on girls, however showed up, whether it was this one or 20 others, however showed up. He had issues with his mother. So he didn't have an affinity for women. So you wouldn't have to be mad at the bruja for doing what you should have done at the Gidea. I know I'm getting all heated. I'm sorry. We didn't have these conversations. We need to have these with mothers, and mothers, we have to sit down with each other and really keep it real and not be so hard on each other and judgmental, but basically, maybe lend a hand. You think I'm mad at the youth? I love these young people. I do. I appreciate these young people. I think they all have wonderful potential. I think they do. I think a lot of you elders also, and this is another thing that I do appreciate that young pillar, Red Pillar said on his show, and I agree with him. I think a lot of the elders are very disrespectful. They're very jealous. I don't know why they're not more helpful to the youth. I think it's sad. I see a lot of these elder men are so venomous towards these young men, like they're haters. Like they would prefer to talk about them. Like they're actually happy. Some of these elders are actually happy that this young man passed away. How could you be happy about that? Like, I understand he was tragic. Listen, I'm not defending this young man's behavior, but we have to see where he came from. So as a mother, I see that. I see it as a mother and as a facilitator. These older, seasoned elders are so abusive and so nasty and so non-empathetic. You wonder why the youth doesn't like you or respect you. I go on the trains and I see, these young men being so disrespectful to the elders. I don't blame them because remember what those young men saw when they were younger, when they saw the elders in their prime, drinking on the street, outside their household, not with their children, sleeping with 50 million women. You don't deserve respect. So you want respect for what? Doing nothing? So you wonder why the young people don't respect some of the elders because your behavior was reprehensible. How are they you got to earn respect. Elders, you don't just get respect from gaining years. You get respect from earning wisdom, from gaining wisdom. That's what you get respect from. Not sitting around here raising who raised him? His grandmother raised him. See, thank you. See, thank you. You know what I mean? Come on now. A lot of people out here, I support the youth because that's our future, and I know it's hard for them. I know it's a different world for them. I know that they don't really they have too much accessibility to too many things too quickly. And it's very different. It's a different world. And we have to be, I always say to you moms or anyone out here, I always say, if you have a moment and you have time and you have anything extra, please donate your time to some of these big brother and big sister organizations that will buddy you up. If you have time, if you have resources and time, dedicate some of the things that you have or some of your business time, like give jobs to those young people who who need that extra, even if they've been to jail. I mean, everybody needs a chance. You know that the prison system is set up for brown males. And you know that once they get that on their record, it's very difficult for them to get a job, even if they only had a bag of weed or something. Even if they did something very slight, they still have a record. Why don't some of you open up your doorways and mentor some of these young men? I want to see more men mentoring young men. I want to see that. I loved it. I had a wonderful daddy. And I have a brother. Listen, I don't necessarily get along with my older brother, but one thing I'm grateful to my parents, they raised all of us children with great integrity. So even though my brother and I are so different, we show up in the world beautifully. My brother dedicates his time to children. He actually goes to church because of his wife, Isn't that interesting? And he has a sister who talks about ET on YouTube. I mess with all his sensibility, but he shows up beautifully. They dedicate their time to children and the youth. Why don't some of you do that instead of talking smack on the internet? You elder men, some of you are nasty. I don't respect that. These young people need some guidance from people who have wisdom. If you can't give them that, then stand out of their way and stop criticizing them. You're nasty and you're very bitter because you didn't do things in life properly. So you can't be happy or at least try to lend your hand to assist the youth. Come on now. And even so with even young Pharaoh, a lot of people have issues with young Pharaoh. This young man, listen, do you know where he comes from? He comes from upstate New York. He had a lot of adversity that he dealt with. Look, he's reading books. He's doing lectures. How could you criticize that? You know what I mean? Yes, he curses. Yes, he does. But that's how he shows up in the world based on how he was reared. But even when I had him on my show, he was very respectful, meaning he has self-restraint. He does wonderful things in showing and giving young people some great information that he has studied. He's not sitting home doing dirt. He's not out selling drugs. He's studying things that are purposeful and helpful to his community. And he shows up, and then you hear all these nasty elders on what's his name? You already know I don't like Sa Neter. Sa Neter and all his goons, they're all Satanists. I know people, listen, if you were down with Satan, I'm not saying I know Satanists. I'm not judging all you Satanists, but I'm just saying he's not a sweetheart. Everybody who sat on Sa Neter, I question, number one. But I'm saying this Sa Neter talks all about this boy sending goons to his lectures. What kind of elder does that? If you're an elder that is supposed to be respectful and honoring, why wouldn't you at least try to assist? Or if you don't like him, he's not your cup of tea, which not everybody is, then step back and just keep it moving. Why are you trying to snuff out this young man's positive life? You want him to be a criminal? You want him to go out there and start hustling because that's the only way he can support his family? Get a life, some of you elders. And I'm talking about the elder men. The women, in the community generally tend to show up nurturing because by nature we have a stargate between our legs. Generally, I'm not saying all women, but I'm just saying the women at least tend to be a little more or they just try to, I don't see them being as critical in that way to the youth. I think, mothers show up and we have more empathy. We have more empathy than anything else. We do, because we mother children and we know that children make mistakes. We know that sometimes as a teenager, we all made mistakes, right? We made mistakes and we grew up from it. That's what I'm saying. This xxXTenacion, he could have been, you don't know how he would have shown up later. He would have evolved with having more resources and accessibility to a life that he was not accustomed to. He probably would have been, a different kind of person. So he could have, but he doesn't even have the opportunity anymore. So I think it's tragic in that way. And this is also a testament that please don't get mad at those who also feel right to give back what was given. Like I said, the Bruja, I have zero problems with the Bruja doing what they do. Why? Is because they can only do what you allow them to do. Okay, so if you're doing dirt, and many of you don't even know, you think that you do dirt behind closed doors, it's not seen. Universe sees everything. Okay, so you do dirt, then whatever consequence comes to you. And like I said, if you're living with integrity, you're really positive, you're doing good things, your auric fields will be impenetrable, and also your angelics and your guides will be powerful. So you'll be less susceptible. Do you understand what I mean? So everything's relative. I'm just saying, be more supportive to these brown males. They're showing up in the world very sick, unfortunately. And it's a testament to the mothers. Sick mothers create sick offspring. Okay. Mothers, please. And young people, young ladies, young sea stars, my young sea stars. I have the most beautiful sea stars ever. You are some of the most powerful young people, and I so support you. I support you. I have sea stars that have been part of my YouTube since they were 15. I have them now as 18, 19, 20, 25, 30. I have young sea stars that are so beautiful. They're so powerful. They're humble. They're doing the work. They're starting to love themselves, and they're also being supportive to other sea stars. I support that, and I see them doing that. And I will always support our younger sea stars because I want them to be encouraged. As someone who's an OG, big up to the OGs, as an OG, I will always be a good facilitator and a healthy facilitator for the youth showing up positively in the world, always. Okay, so for that reason, as far as doing more things with the youth, making sure that we're supportive, making sure that before they have children, they have all the information necessary to make good choices in mating, and also bringing in beautiful, masterful children. We want to make sure we support our young people for that reason. Sometimes, my mom, I have a wonderful matrix mommy and daddy. And I tell you, I always big them up. I give no other credence to any other ancestor except my own. which is my mother and father. And they did a great job. I really appreciate what they did with me and my brothers. And we're very different, but we show up in the world beautifully. And the one thing that I'm grateful with my parents is that anytime someone speaks of their children, it's always mostly positive. Okay. 99%. You know, anytime they talk to my mom, they'll always say, especially, and this is before YouTube, they always say how I showed up in the world or how helpful I was with my brother, how he was always giving to the, you know, to different places and organizations and lending his time and support or counseling. You know, even my baby brother, who's very sweet and supportive, and he's not really overt in the world, but he shows up beautifully. I give honor to my parents for doing that. And, you know, they did it in a time when they didn't come from this country. They had a different culture, different tongue, and they still did it beautifully. So I'm grateful how I showed up, and hopefully I will be able to extend my wisdom and rear my own offspring, my beautiful offspring, well, so that they show up in a world where I can hear some wonderful things about how they are helpful and how they're nurturing and how they are humble. I would love to hear that about my offspring. Okay. And I have to show up how I want them to show up. Just did an interview with Yada's real wife. It's on my channel. Hope you could check. Oh, wow. You did an interview. And that's another thing, that Yada character, that young Pharaoh, he was beating his wife, and he's on YouTube. You see what I'm saying? And then they wonder why they get such a backlash when you're going around beating. Now, listen, I don't want to take away from whatever. We don't know sometimes what happens with women, because women, I've known some women that pop off, because I come from that life. Listen, I rock with warrioresses. I know some sea stars that'll knock your block off, and they don't apologize for it. I'm just saying. So we got to be mindful how we see things, because sometimes we look at the women as victims. I know some sea stars that'll knock some dudes' teeth out before they even come out saying anything. So we can't always put blame on men. I like to always hear both sides of the story, because a lot of times we never hear. But when you usually hear of a mother being yeah, I know some powerful sea stars. You'll see some of them at the conference. Big up to all joining us at the conference. Remember, the conference is July 14th. People are booking tickets still. So July 14th, in Orlando, in a castle in Orlando. So if you're going to join us, make sure you join us. It'll be a nice time. I got everybody coming, but I got some sea stars showing up that are about that life, and they will pop it off before a male pops it off. And that's why you got to be careful following stories, because I don't always want to make it seem like the men are doing stuff. We don't. Sometimes that's just societal cues always lead us to believe that it's the women doing, the men doing harm. Sometimes women will incite men. They'll poke at them until the guy flips out. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying it's right, but I'm just saying, don't ever always believe that the women are, the sea stars are all innocent, because I've seen otherwise. We got to keep it real. You know what I mean? Please keep it real. Yeah. Like Rihanna, everybody's hating on Chris. Well, yeah, Rihanna's a feisty, she's feisty. You know what I'm saying? Yada, the vegan guy, was beating his wife. Well, yeah, but remember, there's a lot of vegan men that beat on people and are unhealthy. Please don't think that because someone's vegan. Remember, all your serial killers, you have Charles Manson was a vegan or a vegetarian, right? Hitler was a vegetarian. Who's the other guy? What's his name? Who sipped the Kool-Aid. He was another vegan or a vegetarian or something like that. A lot of vegetarians and vegans, that does not denote their consciousness. Please do not believe that because somebody is a vegetarian or vegan. I've gotten cursed out by more vegans. Listen, I've got cursed out by more vegans than I've gotten cursed out by meat eaters. So don't ever think, Jim Jones, don't ever think that, don't sleep on those vegans. They're vegan Nazis. They come for me sometimes when they don't like that I'm not co-signing to whatever MK Ultra system that they're on. When I told the vegans that they said they're hungry and angry. When I told the vegans that, there was a lot of the lunar vegans where their eyes were getting lighter, and I've come from that, that clinical field. I told them that they're sick. Anytime you're losing melanin, when you're eating fruits and vegetables, you should be gaining melanin. You start gaining, especially the chlorophyll goes in your skin and your eyes. It makes you darker. If you are now getting lighter skin and also lighter eyes, that's a sign of lack of nutrition. It shows up like that. And the vegan lunars came for me. What? They were like, because they were saying that their eyes were getting blue because, you know, if they had green eyes or brown eyes, it was turning lighter. I said, no, that's deficiency. That's a lack of nutrition. I had to tell them I don't want anyone getting sick. And they came for me, those vegans. They called me all kinds of names. Oh, the Nazis. I could hold my own. I was like, go ahead. But I was like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you're not being deficient. I'm a woman of color. Yes, I am. But it's not to tell you anything. You're beautiful. I love the fact that if you're being a vegan because you love animals and you're being empathetic, absolutely, I support it 1000%. That's why I had become, how I came to the vegan and vegetarian community from when I was 15. Listen, I'm a woman of a certain age, so I'm about this life. So that's why I'm not scared to confront some of these fake vegans who come out the gate 6 months and talk about their love and light now because they're vegans. That's untrue. I've been about this life. I've seen people die from deficiency. I got very sick in my youth for not knowing proper nutrition when becoming a vegan and vegetarian. When I say vegan, vegetarian, I influx. There's sometimes I'll take in eggs or honey, or I've taken in goat's milk when I needed it because I was deprived of certain nutrition, B12 especially after I gave birth and I was pregnant. So I changed from vegan to vegetarian, you know, quite often. You'll see me. I call myself more of a flexitarian. Okay. So when they come for me because I tell them that their eyes are getting light and they're sick, they flip out. Oh, you're mad at people with blue eyes. First of all, there's no such thing as blue eyes. I don't, you know, when people talk to someone who actually has an education, there's only hues of brown. There's only hues of brown. There's no such thing as blue eyes. All it is you're seeing the reflection. When someone has very blue eyes, it looks really pretty, but behind it's not blue. It's because it's clear and you see the reflection of their veins behind their eyes. So there's no such thing as blue eyes. You know, this is another thing in the clinical field that I feel like people are just not being told things properly. It doesn't mean it's bad or good. There's only hues of brown eyes. The only thing that you'll see is lesser, more see-through eyes will see the reflection of the veins behind their eyes, whether it's green or blue. That's all it is. You ask anyone heredity-wise, remember, I worked in heredity. Ask anyone. There's no such thing. And it doesn't make anyone who has clear eyes lesser or more. It just means that that's what it is. And people who have very clear eyes need to wear sunglasses because they're not really exposed to the sun. They're not really supposed to be out in the sun. They're really supposed to be somewhere where there's not that much full-on sun. That's just what it is. You know, and again, I don't know why doctors don't tell people that, or you perpetuate things that are untrue to glamorize it. You know, it's not true. Just like brown people with very dark skin have a heightened amount of melanin. They shouldn't be having certain foods. They shouldn't be eating certain things, or they can't be certain places where there's a lot of, like fermented foods for brown people. People who have a heightened amount of melanin should not be having fermented foods like sauerkraut, like what's the other one? Kabacha. Kabacha can actually be a poison to someone who has a lot of melanin, but they don't tell you that. So you're talking to somebody who's worked with geneticists and has been that. So I know what I'm talking about. You know, when you talk about, even things like this, like a big butt. Do you know why people have big butts? You know, all these people get all this kind of like, apple cider vinegar is also fermented. You should avoid that. People have big butts. Someone talked to me, this woman we were joking about, it was a lunar. We were joking about it because she was in the genetic field. I love her. Kathy, big up to Kathy. She was, we used to talk about ETs during our shift, but Kathy was a geneticist. And also she realized there were a lot of lunars who wanted big butts. And we were saying that nobody knew. I knew personally from studies and researching what big butts were about, but people didn't know that. People who have big buttocks, that's like a camel. A camel is able to hold water. It holds water. What happens is that women of color who come from certain places, especially dry places like in the Sahara, places where it's dry, have bigger buttocks because they store liquids and waters like camels hold it in their humps. Nobody talks about that, but that's a fact of why we have big buttocks, certain women. If you're from the jungle, that's why some jungle women don't have big buttocks, because they don't need to absorb women. The more water that you have access to your genetics, you have flatter behinds. Okay. The more that you're in places that are drier and hotter, you will have bigger behinds because you're keeping and storing water. That's why a brown person in a drought can live 20 or 30 days further than a lunar who does not have that same capacity. It is a benefit. It is not something to be joked about. It is not something that is something that should be encouraged or talked about like it doesn't mean something. It means something. Okay? Everything means something. Your genetics are what you were supposed to be. Your genetics is how you were supposed to show up, and it's for your benefit. Yes. So that's why, when they talk about, you already see me, I'm a thickums, but I don't eat tons of food. You already know that. I'm about this life. But you also, you're calling me a camelback. No, it's not disrespectful. I'm telling you where that comes from. But my genetics is made a certain way. I can go watch Survivor. Some of you think I'm talking smack. Go watch Survivor. Go look at the one brown woman on the show on Survivor and watch her after the 60 days that she's sitting on Survivor not eating. Watch everybody else. Her genetics will hold her weight. She has what we call a survival mechanism in her genomes that will help her hold fat, so that she holds fat, so that in times of drought or famine, she will hold her fat storage will naturally release nutrients into her system. It is a fact. It is a beautiful survival mechanism. The problem is that women that have that quality, living in times when there's access to lots of food and nutrients, they tend to bulk up. Okay, they just bulk up. So they look fat, which you consider to be fat and bulky, because they're living where they don't need that quality. That quality is not being accessed right now. But I bet you when the grid goes down, I bet you when it pops off, I bet you when pole shift comes about, Rashida, with her beautiful round bottom and her thicker self, she's going to be okay. She's not going to require a lot of water. She's not going to require food. She might be mentally a little off from being hungry and feeling like she's thirsty, but she will hold that. That's a survival mechanism. That's why she comes from heirlooms. Some of you need to know your genetic qualities before you listen to other people talk about you and self-hate, because people who don't understand you will say things all day. I worked in the field of geneticists, and all the lunars that I work with respected people of color because they understood the gene pool of where and what we came from. And they understood many different aspects of brown people. Not all brown people come from the same areas. That's why you see brown people who are from the United States of America, who are actually native indigenous, who are very thin. They don't gain weight. They don't get bulky. You'll see them. I see them like down south sometimes. Women are very slender and come from a lot of indigenous lines. They don't bulk. The only ones who bulk who come from hot regions. They're from here in the United States. They tend to stay thin. They come from places where it wasn't super, super hot. There were different seasons. And also they had access to water and food. Plentiful. Okay. So that brown women here look differently than brown women from the Caribbean, brown women from the African or the Sudan area, those areas, they just look differently phenotype wise. Okay. A study showed women with big butts have lower heart disease and chronic disease risk because the fact that acts as a filter to keep and trap toxins from reaching vital organs. Exactly. And also, you also need to know that when many spiritualists, lunar and otherwise, many lunars in the community and brown women, we tend to, whenever there's spiritual attacks or whenever you're doing spiritual work, you tend to get chunky, because that's the way of your body, that your body's actually building a shield to protect the organs from any energetic attacks. That's another reason. Okay. So that's also when you see women bulk up. People who are helpful, like Big Mama. I always talk about Big Mama. Why is Big Mama the biggest in the family? Big Mama is big in the family because she's absorbing all the pain in her and that family. She's muting. She's taking it all in. Okay. So it's a little different. Like I said, but not all brown people are alike. Not all lunars are alike. You lunars from the mountains, lunars from lower areas, lunars that are just lighter skinned brown people who have been genetically modified because of time and ET interception. So they've been hybridized. So they're actually brown women with no color. Okay, that's a fact. And if you don't know that they hybrid people, then go look at the rats in the laboratories that I've worked with that have red eyes and white fur, because they've been homogenized. Okay, so brown people and lunar people, some of you are not too far apart. That's why some O positive lunars look just as thick. They just look like me, but they just have lighter skin. And then you wonder why they like the brown brothers, because they're basically the same people. I'm just saying, nobody wants to hear that. There's some lunars that are brown people that just don't have color. And they like being with other brown men because they're still connected to that genome. Is still what they're attracted to chemistry wise, because they're of the same gene pool. If they're O positive and they're messing with a brother who's O positive, that's still the same gene pool. Genes matter. I get in this all day because the Muslims will get mad at me. Some of the men of Islam get mad when I talk about that. I don't ever disparage. People are talking about mixing and so on. First of all, there's no such thing. There's only species here. There's only certain species here. Okay. If you're not of the same species, you can't give birth to the child naturally. You need a shot. Okay. So if you are from the same species, then you can give birth to children naturally. Okay. If you're not, then you need shots and you need chemicals and you need assistance to give birth to children that are homogenized. Children that are not homogenized need no assistance. Only homogenized children need assistance in birth. Okay. That's what it is. So when you're mating with a species of another being, that's when you need a shot because you're not the same species. You don't need assistance to mate with your own prototypes. I would love to have this conversation with geneticists. The most exciting part of me being who I am is I love sitting down, listening to geneticists talk. I just wish that they talked, a little more freely about things that matter to people of color. Because a lot of times what it is that even if they learn things, they're not allowed to talk about it, or they won't promote it, or they won't talk about a benefit of it. Like if they find something, a genome that's protective or a quality that's good for a brown person, they will never share it. That's a sad thing. And you'll see that a lot of time in the clinician fields. They will keep things that brown people need to know about themselves that are practical and purposeful. Okay, so brown people, love yourself because you were made to last, and just love yourself. Stop worrying about what other people think about you, because if you love you, it doesn't matter what anyone feels about you. It doesn't. And lunars, brown people don't hate you. They have issues with self. That's all it is. Lunars always get defensive when they have these conversations because they feel that we're hostile. And 90% of the time, if we're having these conversations with lunars, there's hostility involved. Stop being so hostile. Lunars, we're not, it's really not personalized, because many lunars are unaware of things that have to do with us because they're not taught those things. It's not perpetuated, and nor did they even inquire about it because it doesn't apply to their lives. And we can't get mad for that reason. If I don't, why would you learn about another group of people that you have nothing to do with? So don't get mad at lunars for not being inquisitive about that. The only time they're inquisitive about us is if they're mating with us, or they're surrounded by us, or they're intrigued by us. That's the only time. You don't get mad at, sometimes our hostility is is like our worst enemy. We got to get over that. And going back to the topic, because I went all kinds of sidebar. What I'm drinking oxygen. They actually had this on sale today. I wanted to buy the oxygen machine, but I actually buy the oxygen because I'm working out. I'm working out every day. I work out all the time anyway, but I'm working out because I want to look very lovely at the conference. I'll look as I do anyway. I work out all the time. Yeah, it's just a vision. I agree, Trish. They just want to separate us. Really, listen, I've had some of my best friends are lunars. Some of my best friends are brown people. Some of my best friends don't even speak my same language. I don't care. All I care about is your frequency. If you match my frequency, you can have blue eye and blonde hair. I will rock with you. You see my girlfriend. Some of you are coming to the conference. You're going to see my homegirls. You're going to see every type of person. You know why? Because I'm balanced. We can talk about everything. And my homegirls who are lunar, we talk about every conversation. They don't shy away from conversations. They don't feel a certain kind of way because they love me. They respect me. So long as they respect me, the conversation we could always keep it real. The problem is that many people are living isolated and segregated. And that's where you get the sensitivity from. All of you are sensitive because you're not exposed to other demographics of people. When you're exposed to everybody, you don't have issues like that. Because you realize that Rashonda has some benefits for who she is, but Keisha does too. And so does Maria, and so does Kathy, and so does Jill. They all have benefits for who they are. It's not really all of you have the same wants and needs. A lot of you just want good, healthy relationships. You want healthy children. Everybody wants that brown, lunar, green in between. Everybody wants that. So a lot of you get caught up in color and complexion because you have issues with self. You know what I'm saying? But I do tell people of color the beautiful things about themselves because no one else will tell you. And I just have the foresight, and I do have some of the intel to tell you things that others won't tell you. That's all. Yeah, that's all. You know what I'm saying? And I love little brown children being successful. I appreciate seeing brown children successful. So when I make a video about xxTenacions and I talk about it, I think it's tragic. I think it's tragic this young man lost his life. I think it's appropriate for a bruja to do what she did to make that happen if that's the case. But I think it's tragic that he came to this point, this pinnacle in his life, and hopefully he comes back in an incarnated form, having learned a lesson about obsessing with death culture. We all have moments in life when we feel depressed. I don't know anybody who doesn't. I've known the wealthiest people who get depressed, and I've known some of the brokest people who get depressed. That's what I'm saying. It's an equal opportunist feeling. You know what I mean? People always think that the grass is green on the other side. Listen, family, you already know. I know some of the wealthiest people, and they are tragically depressed. They would change with you in a heartbeat because they don't know who's friend or foe. They don't feel accomplished. They don't really have to do much to get anything. So they have no angst in life. They've been there, done that. They're bored. And that's when they start getting these sexual depravities. They start doing weird stuff. That's when they start dressing odd because they're bored. Be grateful if you live a life where listen, I'm grateful to have my 2 arms, 2 legs. I'm grateful for my beautiful children. I'm grateful for the comfort that I have. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here on Mother Earth during such a shift. I'm grateful for that. Start being grateful for the things you have and start supporting these beautiful brown little boys. If anything, this video, I'm telling you, brown, green, lunar, in between, please start supporting these young brown boys. Please start doing it, mothers. Please take these men out of your house that don't treat you well around these boys. Please start to see them in the street and say hello. Listen, don't get me twisted. I saw a little brown boy. Remember, I don't live necessarily around that many brown people, right? So I seen these children walking down the road, and I got little girls that are getting older. And I seen these one little brown boy and this lunar boy. They look like they were hip hop up. They look like they were listened to this XX. They look like they listened. And I thought they were in the wrong neighborhood. It's like, what they walking around my neighborhood for? They looked all hip hopped out. Isn't this amazing? I'm a hip hop mother. And I felt away. So I'm looking at them and I tell my little ones, come over here. Cause I don't see boys in their 13, 14. I'm watching my little ones. My little ones are okay. I'm watching you. And the boys are walking by, lunar boys talking all kinds of hip hop. Yeah, you know what I'm saying, son? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then the little brown boy, this is where I took a breath. The little brown boy looks at me. He looked all hip hop out. I called my daughters over. He knew I was a little nervous. And he looked at me and said, "Good afternoon, ma'am." And I took a deep breath. You see that? He said hello to me. He said, "Good afternoon, ma'am." And it took my whole guard down. I wasn't expecting it. I had a little bit of judgment, and he did that. And it made me feel good. It really made me feel good. And I said, "Hey, how are you?" And he had such a beautiful smile. So I had to take that back because some of the television, some of the propaganda that they're doing on the screen has also affected sometimes how I see them. And I apologize, in my mind, to this young man and seeing him a certain way, because I've also been under MK Ultra because I was nervous with my little girls, being out with boys, you know what I'm saying? I'm just that kind of bear. I'll come for you. You attempt to even look a certain way. I'm coming for you and yours. I'm just that type of person. I'm that type of mother. So I had to take down a guard because I was judging this little brown boy based on all the propaganda that I'm hearing and seeing, and it's affected me. So I have to be mindful to always engage with our little our brown males a little differently, So I'm going to start making sure. I always do, but in this situation, it was too close to home, and I wasn't used to. I didn't know. I just get a little nervous. He made me feel good, and I saw him as something different. So I'm going to start to make sure that I show up for children. Well, I've been doing that for years, but I want to make sure that I want to start facilitating for little brown boys. I don't have a son yet. Notice I said yet. I don't have a son yet, but I do feel a certain way about maybe showing up in the world a little way for them. So I'm going to try to do my best to to be better at facilitating to boys, because you already know I'm down for the sea stars every day, all day, and their children. For the young ones, for the little ones. So the little boys see me all the time. The little ones, I'm saying like the little ones, like from newborn to like 6, 5, I'm about that life. But I really need to, I think I want to start to show up for, I'm creating a jungle facility. I told you I'm doing my exodus to the jungle, and I know I'm going to bring mothers with their little sun stars. And I want to make sure that in Florboon Sanctuary, that's why I'm having the conference. If you don't know, that's why I'm doing the conference, is to gain some resources to build this Florboon Sanctuary in the middle of the jungle with little jungle babies like I am, and really start to rear a community where I feel it's healthy for our children to exchange in a safe way, and to rear some healthy young children of all backgrounds. So hopefully, I know that'll happen because I already saw that in my mind's eye. But I think I need to show up a little more for the little brown boys. I think I kind of, if I was a mother of little boys, I probably would do it more initially. I do it as a facilitator. Like if I go around schools and so on, little brown boys see me all day and I always show them love. But I think maybe I need to, I want to be more for them. Do you know what I mean? And it shouldn't just be that I initiate because I have a boy to do it. Maybe I want to initiate it before that. You know what I mean? So I have to try to do it. It's interesting because as a mother of little girls, I have to push that. Okay. So I'm going to try to do that a little bit better. The challenges. Anyway, I talked to you enough. Look at I'm grateful you joined me, but big up to the Brujas who do listen. I do respect the Brujas for doing what they do to send back the angst that has been sent against many. I think there are a lot of injustices. I think the sisterhood is online right now, and I have to really support the sisterhood for showing up and protecting our sea stars from males who are egregious and harmful. And for you males out here who are doing harm to the sea stars and doing harm to your mothers, your sisters, your daughters, your girlfriends, there will be swift consequence. And if nothing else from this lesson of this this young man who tragically passed, of xxXTenacions, that should be a lesson for you to start doing better, because you too could be under that same line of fire if you don't get it together, because we are less patient and there will be more consequence to you because you're no longer in your home court advantage. So that's not a threat, that's a promise. So you need to get it together. And if you can't do it for yourself, then you cannot expect for anyone else to do it for you. And if you're a father, I ask that you be a better facilitator to your boys. And if you are a great father, I ask that you extend yourself to other little boys that maybe need that and don't have that in their household, if you can. That's all. So, I'm unapologetic of how things show up for the males, because a lot of times when it came to the beating of women and the abuses of women, many men sat complacently as friends of those who did harm to women and never stood up for any of us. So now at this point, I have to sit in alignment with my sea stars. I will only and always choose my sea stars and my sisterhood above and beyond any outside males, because of what's happened previously. So, but I will support the children, the male children that are coming up now, because I feel like that's purposeful and I can really make a difference in that arena. But come on, get it together. So let's make some purposeful children in this world, and let's start protecting our males so that they don't, so that they show up safely and beautifully. We used to have some beautiful brown males, beautiful. They're still, I've made it with them. I've made it with males that are beautiful and purposeful, and and I think I'm grateful for that. But I think everyone has that opportunity. There's males out there like that. You just have to look for a different kind of male. Many women are attracted to males who are tragic because they're exposed to that on television all the time. They're exposed to that in their daily lives. They don't see anything different, so they don't know to require anything different. But there are a lot of beautiful males out here who are really purposeful. And I suggest that if you can't find him, then you just roll with the homies on your own until you find a mate that's proper for mating and creating beautiful children. Okay. So, so we don't have any more tragedies like this. Trayvon Martin is another testimony of growing up in a very, insidious beginnings and seeing his brutal end. It's a testament to, how what they were exposed to and how they felt about themselves. All right. So I'm out. I'm grateful that you joined me today. And again, please don't take this video as anything. I'm not justifying anything, but I'm not apologetic for it. So like I said earlier, Bruja is online. I see this as a Bruja, ricochet, and it is what it is. But if we do better, we'll get better. So it is what it is. Can't stop, won't stop. Anyway, I got to go, family. Thank you for joining me today. I love you, and we shall chat another time. Peace.